on LNV Tutorials, I'll be showing you how to create a paper bead necklace. So to get started, I will say this takes a lot of different supplies. The first step is going to be using a paper product to create the paper beads. So you can see I have these really cute blue and white napkins. Usually napkins are going to have more than one layer to them, so you can kind of peel them apart. I feel like they wrap better around the metal rod if so. This is just a wire coat hanger that I cut just the straight part of it off. So this is a great recycling project to do. I have some different options for glue. You can use Elmer's glue, E6000, or a glue stick. For the napkins, I feel like the glue stick works well. It doesn't take much to make them stick. So I'm gonna go ahead and peel apart the layers here. And like I said, it just makes it wrap easier when it's a single layer. I'm gonna cut about, I think, half an inch to no bigger than an inch is sufficient. I'm doing about 3/4 of an inch, and I'm just going to do a long strip. This is folded over right now, so I won't end up using all of it for one bead, but I'm going to go ahead and just cut it like this, trying to keep it straight like that. And I would just continue on cutting strips. So let me move those out of the way and separate this piece. There we go. Lay it out. I'm gonna grab my little metal wire strand here, rod, whatever you wanna call it. I'm gonna use the glue stick, like I said. I think it works better with the napkins. And what I like about the napkins is you can find a variety of prints. Scrapbook paper works well as well. Newspaper, even just regular paper towels if you want to paint them after. And all I'm doing right now is I put a little bit of the glue stick on here, and I'm going to wrap it a little bit like this to start. And I'm wrapping very tightly. And that's just going to ensure that when you take the beads off after, that they don't unravel from the inside out. And so you can see I'm kind of just spinning it on my hand there. I'll put some of the glue stick or the glue on periodically just to secure it. And I just want to go enough until I feel like it's the thickness that I want. So I'm going to continue doing this. And then to go back to what I was saying earlier, different forms of paper work great. Scrapbook paper works really well. It's a little thicker generally, so you have to wrap it a little tighter. Newspaper, magazines are great. Comic books, text, print from just old books work. And then again, if you wanted to paint them, you could certainly just use paper towels or scrap paper. You could also use fabric if it's thinner. If it's really thick, it's going to be hard to get it to wrap around well. Cut it and then add a little more glue to secure the end like this. And I'm going to continue doing this until I fill up my whole rod. I'm not going to use all of the beads when I'm done, but I like to have more than what I need in case one sticks to the rod when I seal it later with Mod Podge, or if it kind of unravels from the inside out, things like that. That's why I make more than necessary. I also want to make sure that when I do my next ones that they aren't touching, so I want to leave a little bit of space between them so that when I seal them with the Mod Podge, they won't stick together. You certainly don't want the beads that you're working so hard on to stick. So I can continue on doing the same length of bead, or you can do shorter, longer, whatever. So let me finish these up, and when I return, I'm going to show you how to seal them. All right, so you can see I have 10 beads on here. I have a little bottle of gloss Mod Podge that I'm going to use, and just twisting off the cap. I'm going to use a paintbrush, dip it in there. Now, if you've used Mod Podge before, you're going to know that obviously it's a sealer, which means it's going to stick whatever you are applying the Mod Podge to. It's going to stick that item to whatever it sits on. So it's really important, and I'm just dabbing this on, making sure to coat it all. It's really important to make sure that when you get done doing this, that you prop your metal rod up on something. So like you can see the spool of wire I have, maybe use 2 of those and set them apart. That way the beads will dry without sticking to whatever surface you put them on. So I'm just going to continue going through, applying a good even coat of the Mod Podge on all of the beads. Once I get done doing all of that, and once they start to set up and dry some, I'm going to go through, I'll do this off screen, and just kind of twist them a little bit on the rod. You really want to make sure that they don't dry and seal stuck onto your metal rod. So again, still going through and covering these. You also want to make sure you wash out your paintbrush really well when you're done with this, or you'll ruin the brush because the bristles will seal all together. So let me go through, get these all sealed. I usually let them, like when my students do this, we let them sit overnight. So let me finish these. When I return, I'm going to show you what we do from here and how we start actually creating the necklace. So now we have our finished beads. Thankfully, they did not stick, so I'm going to gently slide them off of the bar. And like I said, I created 10 beads. Oh, looks like one stuck just a little. There we go. And slide them all off. Okay, I have now a variety of different beads. I'm going for kind of this blue, reminds me of Greece. I'm sure you guys have all seen many pictures these days of on Instagram of people in Santorini, which by the way is where I will be spending my honeymoon next summer. Super excited for that. So I have a variety of beads. These are little connector stones that I'll be using as well. Just different ones, whatever you want to add to really embellish the necklace. I also have 2 of these little chandelier components and some fishing line. So the goal here is to connect the 2 chandelier components with chain at the top, and then your beaded strands will hang on the bottom part. So they'll go from the bottom of the chandelier component over to the other bottom of the other side, which those will sit kind of where your collarbone is. I'm just getting a long piece of fishing line right now, just about a foot to start. And I'm going to begin with a crimp bead. So what I will be doing is connecting each piece of fishing line to the chandelier end so that I can start putting my beads on without worrying about them falling off. So I will start by putting the crimp bead on the fishing line. Don't crimp it yet, just slide it on there. There we go. And then from here, I'm going to slide the fishing line through one of the little loops of the chandelier end. And then you want to take your fishing line and go back through the crimp bead. So it makes a little loop. You don't need to pull much of the fishing line through. You just want a little kind of tail sticking out that you can trim off. You can see there my little crimp bead. And you want to crimp it as close as you can to that little loop that is on the bottom of the chandelier end. So I'm going to take these are my bent nose pliers, and I just crimped that. And now my fishing line is connected, and I don't have to worry about my beads falling off anywhere. I will go back and trim off the little tail in a moment. But you'll see there, we would just connect the other 2 strands as well on there. From here, Now that I've got that connected, I'm going to use, if you've watched our tutorials before, we use these boards and clips. If you have a clipboard, if you want to tape it down to the table, whatever works best for you. So I'm going to clamp that down so it's not moving all over the place on me. I'm going to take my little variety of beads, and from here you really can just have fun with how you want to string everything on. We will be having 3 beaded strands. My students will. Obviously, you can have however many you want. It certainly is going to depend on the the chandelier component you have. If you have one that has like 5 loops, you would want 5 strands. You're going to have 2 loops that are just open and look like something fell off. So I'm going to keep putting some beads on. This part's pretty simple. Okay, I've got a little progress here. I've switched up the different types of beads. So there's seed beads, some 6mm beads, as well as some Heishi beads. And now I want to use one of these, there we go, one of these little jewel connectors. So it has a loop on each side. The nice thing with these is it's a good way to add just some embellishment to a necklace that you're including paper beads on. So to do this, I put the crimp bead on the fishing line again, went through the loop of the connector, back through the crimp bead. So just like we did to start the beginning. And I'm going to pull the fishing line all the way until it stops. And I'm going to take my pliers and crimp that bead right there. There we go. And from here, I'm going to trim off my extra fishing line. There we are. And so now I'm ready to start a new piece of fishing line on the bottom of that. So it's basically like a little stopping segment. Again, put the crimp bead on the fishing line, go through the loop of the little connector jewel, or whatever you have there, and go back through the crimp bead. Pull the fishing line just a little now because we're starting a new piece. So just like you did at the beginning on the chandelier end. Okay, and I just want to get it into place here. And take the pliers and crimp that again. There we are. Trim off the little tail. So now I can begin or continue adding more beads, and I'm going to continue this all the way around until I get over to the other side where I want to put this other little connector gem. Okay, so you can see I've kind of skipped forward a little bit, made some progress. I connected the other little gem connector on the right side, so it's very symmetrical, and I have begun working on my second strand. On this strand, I'm starting to incorporate the paper beads. I'm to the point where I have another one of these little connectors. This is like a, kind of looks like a marble stone cylinder with a loop on each end. So it's the same process. You put the crimp bead on, go through the loop and back through the crimp bead and crimp it with your pliers like so. Cut off the extra and just continue on with your beads. I would highly recommend laying yours out like this so that you can see what you're doing and you can make sure that everything is symmetrical if that's what you're going for. My students are required for this particular project to make it symmetrical. So you can see how both sides are a mirror reflection like this. And from here, and I haven't begun attaching the other side yet, but I'll do that in just a minute. I'm going to go ahead and do my third strand. And then from here, I'm going to show you how to connect this other chandelier part. So I'm guessing by now you've probably picked up on how to connect these based on the little jeweled connectors we've been using, or the stone connectors, or you might have metal connectors. So again, crimp bead goes on. You're going to go through the loop of your chandelier end. You do want to make sure that you are mindful of which loop that you use. So the inside strand needs to go to, if you're working on this same process I am, I would need to go to the leftmost loop on the chandelier end. The middle strand needs to connect to the middle loop, and the outer strand would go to the right loop. That way they don't get twisted. And when the necklace, if someone's wearing the necklace, it lays the correct way. Okay, so we've got that. Let me do the other two. So we've got this part finished up. Alrighty, I'm gonna unclip it. And we're ready to move on to the last step, which is just connecting the chain. Even though this is about a 20-minute tutorial, this is quite a time-consuming project, especially with making the paper beads. But they look so fun when they're done. Okay, so we've got this finished up. I'm going to use, I'm going to use paper clip chain for the top. And you can include a clasp if you want. If it's long enough and you want to slip it over your head, you don't need a clasp. So I'm just going to connect both sides to the top part of the chandelier component, or chandelier end, whatever you want to refer to it as, with a jump ring while I'm fishing these out. I just want to make sure that I remind you that the links to all of these supplies are in the description below. I do hope that you subscribe to our channel, like this video, give it a thumbs up, share it, all that fun stuff. Make sure you leave comments below if you have any questions, definitely. So to do this, I'm just going to twist open the jump ring. I'm going to hook it onto the opening, or the little loop on the top of the chandelier end. Hook that onto the chain like so. Remember, always twist your jump ring open, never pull it apart. And I'm going to close this back up like this. Close it completely so that it doesn't slip out. And now the other side is done. So pretty. And that is it for this tutorial, guys. Thanks for watching.